About 5 seconds the first time, you weren't looking, and so I say, hey, Matt, watch this. Good evening, everybody, and welcome back to the Aviation podcast. My name is Joe.
And my name is Matt.
And we are on episode 90. Welcome to 2024.
Welcome to 2024. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
All right. So that means it's a brand new year. And we did a little bit of a look forward, look behind, look forward kind of deal last time. As well as kind of talked about some things that were going on in the hobby and what we were doing. This episode, let's concentrate on, hey, congratulations, you're new. What are the top 5 things that we think you can do to get into the hobby?
Mm-hmm.
The 5 best ways to do it.
Or if you got somebody who is interested in the hobby, point them in this direction, because this will be hopefully a good starting point or a good way for them to decide if and how they want to enter the hobby. Sort of some avenues they can look at. Now, this is all stuff we've talked about before, but it's worth summing up and just revisiting it. We may hit it once a year moving forward, we'll see. But if nothing else, just kind of look at what's new, what's changed, what options are out there for getting into it. Matt, I thank you for doing, I don't even want to say the heavy lifting, all the lifting on putting this together.
I wouldn't worry about it. It's no, I mean, a lot of it is the stuff I think we've talked about over this past handful of years. The things you've probably already looked at, as you have a handful of kids that come into your church and they seem interested, so you bring them out and show them what RC could be. And I'm sure part of it is like, well, how? The next question they're going to ask is, how do I get involved? And if it's not them asking, it's their parents, right? So. Mm-hmm. And, as I'm looking at potentially putting together a local club at the rec center to show kids in my town what the RC hobby can do for them and or tell their parents what the hobby can do for themselves and their kids. I can't speak highly enough of the hobby in general. But the first question out of almost anybody's mouth, either if they're at a park, or they're doing something with you like this, where like, oh, whoa, cool. How much is that? How do I get started? What is it going to take? Like, what do I need? Where do I begin? Right. So, And that is a popular question. I think every hobbyist at some point or another is going to ask. So listen, if you're already in the hobby, pay attention and think of the things that, we're going to cover here, and have those at the ready, because, it's important to help people get involved right away. So why don't we go through these, and then Joe, you and I can talk about some of the things we've done on our journey since the beginning of the year, since the end of last year. Right? And then we'll kind of close it out with community events, or do you want to do it the other way around? Do it like we normally do?
I kind of say we stick to our normal, and then, because I don't think we've got a whole lot to cover on that side, and then we can dive into the main topic.
All right. Okay. Well, why don't you talk about what you've been up to? I know you've been continuing work on your man cave still, right?
Yeah. So I got lights coming in finally this week. So that's sort of the last major part, is to get the lights put up in here, get them wired up, and program the controller to do all the fancy things I want it to do. Mm-hmm. And that will be an ongoing thing. But just the ability to have some lights as opposed to a lamp will be nice. And then I have been continuing to tinker with the 3D printer. So I got in a glass bed for it, had some success trying to print something that was printing nice, but when I was trying to print, kept breaking off from the base because it was I was trying to print a wizard wand for one of my
Sideways
D&D players.
or
No,
vertically?
the print said it could go straight up. It had a rounded bottom, so it was a very small point it was trying to sit on.
Whoa. Well, of course it came off.
Well,
You got to turn that sideways. And then
everybody said it would print fine,
Oh, all right.
but it wasn't. And so I printed a couple, I may have mentioned this before. I tried several times, kept having problems, and this was even after getting the glass bed. But it was mostly that it was the slight bit of friction that it has when it's printing, when it gets high enough up, that moment angle at all. Anyway, it kept popping loose. So right. I did turn it on its side eventually.
Did you try making a big brim or a raft?
Yes, even with a raft, even adding tree supports, because there was nothing, once you got started, there was nowhere for the supports to tie in.
No, right.
Because of the way it was designed and the particular wand, it just didn't. So anyway, I did eventually turn it on its side, and then I ran into the problem where my extruder motor was basically cutting the filament from where, I don't know if it was binding, if it was that heat creep again, but I had problems. Anyway, so since then I've revisited, balanced it again, or leveled the bed, did some printing. I'm starting to reprint the Eclipse Model B, just because I had swelling or elephant footing of the previous model. So I said, you know what, let me just print this thing from the beginning again, see if I can have better luck and pieces fit together better. And what I have found during that is I got one fuselage section printed right, and I think the problem that I'm having where it's cutting my filament isn't so much that it's binding as much as it is the extruder motor tensioner spring was just too tight. And so my feed gear was putting heavy teeth marks in the filament, and I think I was just
chewing it up.
Yeah, I think I was just cutting it. So
interesting.
I've not had that problem since I've backed off the tension on that spring, but I have run back into first layer adhesion issues. And what I don't know is if I've got a boogered up tip, like maybe there's a little bit of trash. I tried cleaning it. If I've got my bed needs to be cleaned again, which I have just cleaned it, or if it's a Z offset issue at this point, because I had one print great, and now I just can't get that first layer to grab. But I think once I get it to grab again, it's going to be great. But I'm also thinking about just taking the BL Touch off the system altogether, because even still with the glass bed, my BL Touch is telling me that my bed is warped. And so I think I'm just going to take that out of the equation completely at this point. But yeah, and then I got to come up and see you and play some D&D and fly, which was, I don't want to say a surprise, but we're getting better about saying we're going to go flying this weekend. Okay, we both got planes ready to go. We just top off the batteries and go.
Yeah, which was easy. I had a handful that was pretty much ready. And I had the Mustang. I had ripped my landing gear off for a while back because I made the landing gear wires too short. And to fix that issue, because that basically brought the prop too close to the ground, my fix was to make really, really, really big wheels.
Yeah.
Which looks silly. So I pulled them off. And I'm like, all right, well, now that this is off already, let me switch a motor over, which I had one that was kind of ready for that kind of stuff. I just put it in the Mustang and we flew it. So we got to fly together again, which is awesome. You flew you flew your 3D flyer.
Yeah, the FT Edge.
And then I flew the FT Mustang, the original, P-51 Mustang that they had from ages ago. Everybody, continues to claim this is a great airplane. You know what? It is.
Oh, yeah?
It flew great. It flew really, really good. Just, I would say, maybe not as smooth and docile, I guess, as the Spitfire, but it's only a hair behind.
Hmm.
It's another one of those builds like, hey, if you like a warbird, build this one, and if you're new, you'll probably be able to fly it, but be proud of what you built. And be
Okay.
excited, to see your World War II bird fly past because it's very recognizable.
Hmm.
Yep. So we got to do
And
that.
some
And that was
guys
fun.
came out to the field as well.
Yeah, it was like the
It's the
first time
first time
you've
I've seen
seen.
more than 2 people out there.
I know, yeah, and that's you saw the beginnings of the Sunday crew. So one of the guys you saw was our new chapter president, or our new field president,
Oh,
Zach
which one
Marshall.
was that?
Zach Marshall. He's the guy who made
Oh,
her edge.
I didn't know he had been voted president.
Yep. Yeah. Our current president stepped down. It was a lot to kind of keep doing and keep running out to the field. He lived pretty far away. So, yeah. And I think some things had freed up for Zach. So he was able to take the position. So, unfortunately, I can barely get out to those meetings. So I wasn't really there for half of that, but I'm glad to see that he's there. He's a good ambassador of the hobby for sure. So,
Yeah.
again, we had a bunch of other guys come out who were part of that. So it was really great to see everybody. Very encouraging, welcoming group as always, and they were kind of excited to see you there and watch you fly. And I think they were letting you know you were welcome by giving you a couple ribs here and there.
Yeah, you know you're welcome when the ribbing starts.
Come on, you can fly lower. What is that? Inverted. Yeah.
No, thank you.
Well, you did.
I did.
Yeah.
I actually flipped the edge over, flew inverted for about 5 seconds.
It's a start.
It was about 5 seconds the first time. You weren't looking, and so I said, "Hey, Matt, watch this." And then the first time felt okay. The second time was really squirrely, and I said, let me roll her back over and get out of this. And I think you had the look on your face of, did you mean to do that?
Yeah. No, because I've done it myself. Yeah, where you're like, oh, that didn't go right, but it's okay. No, you did great, and if that's the first couple times you've tried it, you did it really smart. In that you were up. At least a couple mistakes high, so that way, if you went out of it the wrong way, you could at least roll and recover and have plenty of room to be able to get your bearings and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, you did really good. I was proud of you.
Well, thank you.
Pleased to see you continue getting more and more comfortable. I know you don't always get a good chance to get out and fly near you, so I know when you come up, it's always nice for us to have some time together. Yeah, that was good. Flying the Mustang was a breeze as always. I ended up almost cutting grass. I was flying so low on a couple of the passes that I was doing. I didn't really do anything as far as making it look pretty, so it was very white, and I lost orientation a couple times because that sun was it looked like 40 degrees or 50 degrees up. So once it head over to that direction, man, if you weren't low to the ground, chances are your plane was going to get lost in the sun and you're going to be blind for about 3 seconds. As a matter of fact, I did. And I just let the plane kind of go. I'm like, I should probably come out the other side somewhere, just sort of watching and hoping I could see it.
I've done that a fair number of times.
Oh, it's not a good feeling though.
No.
Yeah, it's a hazard of flying that time of day, I guess.
It's that time of day in the winter.
Right, especially in the winter. And, every field has a spot, a time and a spot that they're like, you don't go out and fly in this field in the morning because you're going to basically be getting an eyeball full of sun. It's not going to be good. But I know our field in the evening, sun tends to be behind us. So usually when we go, we're in the afternoon. So that usually ends up working out great. Today, this past weekend, we managed to get out there about midday, actually about 11 o'clock when the field kind of opened, as it were. So, yeah, we did that. I've been working, I would say diligently, or I'll call it consistently, on the giant project. I was really hoping to have everything covered by now, but what I realized was I had certain panels that needed some reinforcements. I didn't design any of the what are those servo locations, so I haven't put them in. right? So
Oh,
I haven't put any reinforcements for any of that stuff or a thing. So that way, if what I should have done is set windows, right? And then set it so that I can remove those panels to get access to the servo. So that way, if I need to reconnect or something has to be adjusted, I can just, on the big noob, it was skinned with foam. So I could just cut a panel, right? Wherever I need it. But this
right.
is covered with film. So I have to take like the whole film panel off and then put a new one on and then shrink it.
Mm-hmm.
And so rather than do that, if I build, I'll call it a foam panel, access panel, I can then cut that later and then the film will still be intact. So if I,
Okay.
again, one of those like, I've never had to do this. And if I was a balsa builder, this would probably come natural, right? But as I'm coming from the world of foam where the skin of the wing is foam and not something else, which has enough structure to kind of get away with certain things.
Right.
I probably would have built in that already because if you're a foam builder or if you're a balsa builder, that tends to be the kind of part and parcel of putting in servos. Like either you're sinking it into the rib wall, right, and you're anchoring it that way, and then you still have to put like an access hatch
Mm-hmm.
so you can kind of tighten up all the parts and pieces in there. And if not, you got to set up. That's the thing you got to plan out that you don't normally have to with foam boards. So, I've got to do that really quick. Probably next time I get to sit down with this thing, I'm going to put those panels in, and then covering it will be really simple. But I've got all the reinforcing. I've got like a diamond pattern on the top landing section, and other than the long flat sections on the edge, what I realized when I did my trial is that when you tack down the ends and you tack around the sides to kind of keep the film attached as you kind of shrink it down, it'll pull that side piece in as the plastic shrinks. If you're in the middle, they shrink equally on both
Mm-hmm.
sides, so it doesn't go anywhere. But on the ends, you have to have some sort of stiffener. And I didn't think about that when I was doing the initial design. I was just kind of putting it together. And so that's another thing I'm kind of learning as I go, right? And in the big model, I think it'll be basically the same thing. I'm probably going to use a little bit stiffer of a film, but it's still going to pull. And the foam isn't going to be that much thicker, I don't think, where it's going to have enough structural integrity on its own to not flex, right? Like I'll still have to reinforce them probably if I want to keep it really light, which I do.
Right.
So, yeah, so there's a little bit more work, some things I didn't do, and I did that on purpose because of which wing it was and what kind of, like it's not supporting the motors, so I didn't do some of the diagonal reinforcing that the back wing is going to get because it will support motors. But yeah, I'm getting there. It's steady progress. I'm hoping, I was really hoping to have the film buttoned up on the carrier surface and the wings. But I think I'll be able to tackle that maybe this weekend, it looks like. So yeah, hopefully by then I'll be able to basically have all the main components together, and we'll cobble together a pod, and the main body of it, the fuselage, which is basically going to be those the disc shooter trays. Oh, that was the other thing. I built mini disc shooters. They're 7-inchers, right? Because the full size ones are 20-inch. So I made it 1/3 scale. A 7-inch, I made it pretty much the same. And it gets balanced out by a penny in the front. I'm going to tear off some of the paper in the back to keep it lightweight. And I chucked those things and they went across about 30 feet on a light chuck. So they did pretty good. I'm pretty pleased with them.
So
some of the
now we
guys
have to
who
figure out a way to control them.
Well, I mean, in this model, not important, but in the bigger model, that'll
yeah.
be easy enough. In the bigger model, I've already tested that model, right? I've already tested the circle plane. It will fly on an easy pack. And if we want, we can get like 1104 motors or a little bit bigger, like what are they called? Like 3-inch drone motors. Those really tiny ones that are like, wow, that's really tiny, and boy, those go fast. So my thought is, if we had 2 of those, you could probably build the plane that way. The full size one, and it'll go really fast, and it'll be controlled like any normal airplane.
Okay.
So get a little FPV on there or something, or get some sort of feed. We'll have to figure that part out. Ultimately, like the real goal is build this thing, have it a flying platform. Secondary action is to be able to at least launch a swarm of discs, even if you can't control them. Maybe it's just like chaff. Like, they're coming to attack. Launch all the fighters, and they just burst out,
That's going to be chaos.
That's the whole point. It could be fun. It could be a lot of fun. So, there's a lot of different options. I've kind of got the baseline. I've actually got to write up a little bit more on the project, and what I'd like to do is kind of put it out to everybody to, see more in more detail, where the levels are that we hope to get to, right? Like, this is what we're planning. This is where we're going to get to, definitely, right? What we'd love to do is this. What we'd love to do is this even more. We'd love to do that. If we can get these things figured out, I'd love to even do this. If we can get, maybe if we need extra funding for certain parts because they're kind of expensive. I don't know which ones we're thinking about, but it's like, okay, if we can raise this much money, we're going to add this silly thing. I don't know. I don't know what it would be. But right now, just, I'm going to start typing that stuff up. Because after that look ahead and look behind stuff, it kind of helped me get perspective on what we're aiming to do. And so, I'd like to detail this project a little bit more in the next week or two. So I'm hoping that we can get that kind of highlighted for everybody and available for everybody to look at if they're interested in seeing what we're going to do. And there is a vote on whether or not Joe has proclaimed that he will make a 300% noob wonder. And if I have time beyond this project, the thought was I can either build a 300% noob to go alongside Joe's, and we could fly them once again in tandem. Is that tandem? Side by side?
Tandem, yeah.
Or is that front to back? That's tandem. Tandem bicycles are front to back.
Okay.
Right? Yeah, I don't know. You know what I'm talking about. Alongside. So we can fly together. And then we'll do some fun acrobatics, or I don't know what we'll do. Or instead of building that, I could take some of the other parts that I had set aside for that and build a tri-motor. The Ford Tri-Motor to rival the RC Plane Labs build that they proclaimed that they would have done by the end of this year, I think, last year.
You gotta call them out like that.
Well, because I made an errant claim too. I said although my claim is still not done, I said that I can build a foam one faster than I can build the balsa. I would have my design
is still sitting out there.
Right. I still have mine. My design is done. I have a handful of the things printed out so that I could start cutting it together and cobbling it together. There's some aspects of it that I didn't finish up, but I'm pretty sure that if I put my mind to it, I could have it together, the main fuse and the main wing and some of the framing together. I'm guessing I could do that in about 2 to 3 weeks.
Okay. So, Ron, if you're listening, Flight Fest, that's sort of your deadline.
Mm-hmm. I mean, that's if that's what people really, really, really want to see. Ultimately, right. my claim of I'm still going to get it done before they will, because I have a feeling they're not going to get it done before summer is over.
It's a big project.
It is a big project, and I know they have a lot more moving parts. Although they do have assistance. They do have a laser cutter, so the time it takes to cut out all the pieces.
Yeah, but you got a time save.
Yeah, if I could find the bearings.
Moving on.
in all the boxes that I saw, I'm still working on putting all the things away in my shop. I've yet to uncover those bearings, but boy, when I do, it's going to be trouble. But yeah, that's it. It's been busy, but I'll call it mostly lightweight stuff. It's been a busy holiday time, so it's been good.
Yeah. Talk about community events, and then we'll get into it.
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay, so we've got a couple build parties coming up. Well, we got one, I think that's still planned. Oh, looks like you got two.
Well, we got one in January on the 12th.
Okay. You've still got that one listed as tentative.
No, I'm declaring. Was double checking earlier as we were getting started with my Cub Master, with Scoutmaster, and he said that the outing we had planned for one of those weekends, it looks like we missed a deadline. So if we're doing anything, it'll probably be pretty mundane.
Okay.
So I will be free for build party on the 12th. I think that's probably a good time to do that.
Okay, and then what about the 19th?
No, unless you want to set one like a sim night up on the 19th or something and kind of head that up, I will leave that open to you. But I was planning on one because next month is Builduary, which means I'm going to be building like a darn fool almost every single weekend. I'll be building a lot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because you're going to be doing the Builduary thing on top of your already things you got going on.
Yeah, the things I declared were 3 disc shooters. That was first and foremost.
Oh, okay.
That's my Builduary build party build.
Is the 3 discs.
Yeah,
okay.
I'm going to build 3 discs so that there'll be a total of 4 ready to go.
There you go. Well, why don't you quickly explain the Builduary for anybody who may not be familiar with it?
Okay, on the flight test forums every year for, I think since 2018. So that's almost 6 years, is that? Holy cow, 6 years.
Yeah.
So this is like the 6th time or 7th time that I've done this. And it was followed up by a design build challenge that somebody had started at in the previous part of the year. And it usually ended up finishing in January. And so it was like, well, everybody put together these really awesome new designs, right, that they did themselves. And what a great opportunity to try one out is join this Builduary, build a bunch of planes you already have on your list, because we're getting in the Northern Hemisphere, we're getting ready for fly season, right? So it's time to finish up all the builds you've been working on, right? So to highlight the flight test, the ease of the flight test build style, get 4 planes and build them in the 4 weeks you have of February. And so 4 planes, 4 weeks, good luck. Seems real simple. Oh, and you got to fly it and film it. So you just have to do a quick, it doesn't have to be flying much, but get it in the air, give it an attempt, and post the video footage so we know you gave it a try and it in fact left the ground, right?
Okay.
Yep. So that's it. And then, post links and do like a quick write-up. Doesn't have to be a ton, but just kind of explain what you did, if there's anything different that you did. Maybe a quick note or two about your thoughts on that specific build, so that anybody else who might be trying it has at least another person to kind of go, oh, that was their experience. Cool. This is a good, this is what I need to look out for because I love this plane. I'm going to build it anyway. Now I know what not to do, right? Or what to do, because I saw what they did and it was like, oh, that was a great idea, because I've seen that too. Some people will design their own. They will design, and I've been party to that. I will pick, usually one of my planes is I design it that month, cut it out, build it, fly it, test it, build it, fly it, test it again. Maybe I get success, and good luck. Meanwhile, building 3 other planes, all in that 1 month. And yeah, that's not easy. So I urge you, pick a handful of simple, quick planes, because life will take hold somewhere in the middle of that month and ruin all your plans. Every time. But don't worry about it. Like to me, so if you're thinking about it, I urge you to join up. It's on the flight test forums. We're going to have a link in the description. Look up FTFC. So that's Flight Test Forum Community 2024. So it's FTFC 24 Builduary, and then you can look up that. So I have a link there. I urge you to join it. If nothing else, the community that signs up is just a whole madcap team of fools who love building, love flying, love a good challenge. There's a lot of people who try and are like, I'm never going to make it. Like, don't worry if you can't make it. If you try, what's the worst that could happen? You have more planes that you have lined up ready to build. And having quick build kits isn't off the limit, right? It's because that's what Flight Test sells. So if you have a design and you cut it out ahead of time, you can save yourself a little time that way. That's why I usually post in January. So all I can say is I urge you to go in, sign up. Post number 2 is basically a list of all the people who signed up. And then all the posts after that, I think I have one more post that I usually post the winners, right? The results of the contest. And then after that, it's usually everybody encouraging each other. And I urge you to join in. It's a lot of good fun. It's a great community. And more importantly, if you just started, join a challenge. Give yourself a set and a deadline and an attempt with a community. And we'll talk more about that later. But community, I really can't stress enough, it really pulled me into the hobby further than I was. Like I was kind of on the fringes looking kind of, well, I could try. I did the one, it was kind of fun. And then there was a challenge and I went in and man, I met so many people on the forums that I'd been seeing their work before and we were communicating back and forth. There's a lot of encouragement. It was really worth it. So I urge you to join in. I'll stop.
You're good.
But I mean, to me, it was a great way to really engage in the community, and it helped get me excited about what I was new to, and it made me not afraid to try different things and to fail. Because I was watching all these people, I'm like, I see you build amazing stuff, and I'm like, yeah, I tried it, it failed, and I built another one, and I tried it and failed, and I glued it back together, I tried it, and it worked. That was it. This was what I messed up. This is really cool. So I just updated the plans. Go build another one as I build this one. And it was kind of a lot of people like, oh, great, really cool, congratulations, looks great. That kind of stuff. A lot of encouragement. Even if it doesn't work out the way you hoped, the fact that you're keeping at it is, you'll have a lot of people encouraging you along the way. Really important to enjoying this hobby. So, yeah. I'm trying to think, any other community things that we should talk about? I know we have a couple guests kind of lined up, and I think some really great guests coming through. Plane histories. Maybe we should mention that if you are interested in submitting a plane history to help us out, we certainly may end up picking your history to read in between our journey and typically the main topic or before we talk to a guest. We'd love to get help with that. We usually try to do a bunch ourselves, but sometimes it's nice to hear from a different voice.
It is.
And I think one last thing is that we're going to open up new to the hobby channel and our Discord. I urge you to join our Discord. And what I would love to do, if you are in the hobby for maybe over 6 months, but under a year, somewhere in there, right?
Okay.
More or less. I'd love to hear from you because one of the things we want to do this year is kind of reconnect with the new flyer, the new to the hobby person. So if you're listening to this going, this was the episode I needed, I wanted to know how to get in the hobby, and you're going at it, I want to hear your experience. I want to hear how you succeeded and how you failed and what your impressions were and what you wish somebody could have done for you to make your entrance into the hobby even easier. So please let us know if you're interested in being a short interview as a kind of a segment similar to the history.
And we would love to have you on because we started out, I was that guy, and I'm still that guy, but a little less that guy.
Well, no, we are that guy for other parts of the hobby, but not coming into the hobby brand new and going, what in the world is all this stuff? At this point, we're looking at like, what is all this stuff I need for fiberglassing? Or what is all this stuff with the balsa? I thought this was supposed to be simple, or whatever, right? Like we have new aspects of the hobby, but the flying, general piloting and all the startup stuff is no longer so new. So I think you and I both find it valuable to hear that new perspective. Mm-hmm. So to make sure that we're serving that community really well, because that's what this is about. I want you to join in. I want you to try. I want you to keep at it. I want you to have success and fall in love with this hobby the way Joe and I have, among all the other people in the Discord.
Absolutely.
Right.
So join the Discord, reach out, let us know.
Yep. We have a link in the description below. An invite.
Doobly-doo.
Yep, in the doobly-doo.
Thank you, Matthew Colville.
Yep, you can just copy the link and paste it in, and it'll drop you into one of our, I think, the rules segment, which is basically you're going to make like a little emoji comment or something that basically indicates that you've read their rules, which is basically just don't be a jerk. I think that sums it up. And then there'll also be another window there that we'd love to have you take a look at. And it's basically, what kind of community would you love to hear announcements about? So are you a builder? Are you a flyer? Are you into 3D printing? Or, we have a bunch of different kind of, a handful of subsectors. So when we do events, like for simming and things like that, like we'll make an announcement to all the people who want to sim. Hey, we're going to sim this weekend. Or, hey, we have a build party coming up. We'll send it to build partiers, because if we're sending it to everybody, that gets annoying after a while. If you're like, I don't care to build, stop annoying me with these.
That's right.
We're not there to annoy you. So we're there to just encourage it.
Just to reiterate on that, and then we head into our main topic. What we're saying in that, when you join, there's one channel that you get to see, and we see a lot of people who have clicked into the Discord server, but if you don't accept by clicking the thumbs up to say, yep, read the rules, accept them, the rest of the server doesn't open up. So if you have, and you're like, well, I never see anything in there, click the button.
Right. The rules section is right second to the top, or whatever of the channels.
It's the only thing they see.
It will be the only thing you can get to. After you do that, there'll be a section called role selection. When you click on that, that's where you basically give it the thumbs up on either being a sim pilot, build party, or podcast listener. So that'll just be, when we make announcements about our podcast or about the build parties or any sim piloting or sim parties. We just want to make sure that you get those announcements for sure. So good. Cool. Thank you, Joe.
Yeah, man. I just wanted to reiterate that so it was clear.
Yep. Very good. Perfect.
Okay. Take it away, Matt. This is
all right.
What you've been working on.
I guess. Yeah. So, I mean, we've been talking about it on and off anyway, but let's talk about the top 5 ways to join those elite RC pilots in 2024. If you just got into the hobby, these are 5 of the best ways we feel that you can get into the hobby and be successful quickly.
Real quick, define an elite RC pilot.
One who can fly around in a circle for a while without crashing her plane on the first go.
So not us.
Okay. So maybe elite was a little misleading and kind of hopeful. But I imagine when you start in the hobby, you're like, I want to be an amazing pilot like Oliver, for example. All those people who do the 3D tail sitting plane, like hanging out right in front of you, and they're doing these crazy maneuvers. Like, you can get there. Actually, you can get there a lot quicker than you think. Some of it's dedication, some of it's willing to push through the successes, perseverance, that kind of stuff, community. We'll talk about that. But you can become an elite RC pilot. But you got to get in, you got to give it a go, and you got to stick to it. So let's talk about ways you can do that and do it successfully. So our first one will be simulators. I really can't stress them enough. It's the cheapest way to get involved in the hobby and get skills, some basic skills in the hobby. And it also ultimately will allow you to improve your skills if you keep at it. But basically, simulators are programs that you put on your computer, or Xbox has some, a lot of the gaming platforms have a couple. We urge you to, if you have a transmitter, or if you can get one that comes with a transmitter, maybe even buy a secondhand transmitter that you can connect. Use a transmitter, because that has special, like the throttle doesn't have a return to center. It just goes and it kind of sticks wherever you leave it. All the other ones kind of return to center like a joystick. It's important because when you get out to the field, granted, if you don't have it, you'll still learn things. You just won't learn. You'll have to learn new things when you get out to the field with your kit. But the idea is to get your fingers muscle memory and teaching your brain on what to do to be able to send the commands to the plane to do the things you're looking for it to do. The great part about it is when you do it wrong and you crash your plane, because you will, not only in the simulator, but you'll do it in real life too. But when you do it, when you crash, it costs nothing. You hit the space bar or whatever button it is, and you reset and you start over, right? And you give it another go, and you give it another go, and you can keep doing it as many times as you go, oh, okay, I'm tired of doing that. Let me focus. It's no longer so much fun. Or so I'm not laughing my butt off every time I crash this thing into the ground. Maybe it's time to maybe learn some skills. A number of these have trainers where literally they're a program where you can watch a ghost plane go and you try to keep up with it. They will talk you through what you have to do, and they will teach you how to fly a plane. You will learn your basic hand-eye coordination that you need and the muscle memory of like what to do when your plane's in certain orientations. And it will also teach you that when the plane is coming back, everything's backwards, right? The left is right and right is left.
And
But
that will mess you up every time.
It will mess you up until your brain goes, oh, I get it. And all of a sudden you'll be like, oh, I'm in the cockpit. Got it. Yep. I'm in the cockpit. I guess I got it. And you mentally flip and you don't even think about it after a minute. Like, Joe, how much do you really think about what direction your plane is going when you fly now?
A lot, actually. A lot.
Right.
So when we were at the field, the other day, I have a direction that when I'm flying in that direction, I'm good. But when I go the other way, I'm not good. Now, maybe that's because on your field, I tend to fly off to the left more. But when I'm flying right to left, I feel more comfortable in my orientation. If I'm flying away from me, definitely got it. If I'm flying left to right, I've still got it. Mm-hmm. When I'm flying right to left. When I'm flying left to right, which is it more coming at me because of the orientation of your field, and oftentimes maybe where I don't know.
We had the sun kind of blocking half the field. Like we went over to the right too far.
Mm-hmm.
We were blind. So it behooved us to kind of start doing our turn stuff early. Normally we'd kind of let it go all the way down the field and turn and, have a little bit more time. But
I do feel like, generally speaking, coming from my left to coming from my right to my left,
mm-hmm.
I feel like I'm better with my orientation than when I'm way off to the left and going to my right. For whatever reason. Until I get past me. And then it can flip in my head. I'm like, I'm good. But the whole time it's coming down the field from the left, I'm in my head saying, it's reverse, it's reverse, it's reverse, it's reverse. Yes. I still struggle with that.
And that's what, yeah. And I think if you were to practice simming in between, your brain would already have the flip-flop by now. Like you go out to fly for real and that wouldn't be your thought.
Are you saying I'm not committed enough?
No, I'm just saying that you have a lot of other things you enjoy too. And the hobby isn't always the one you go to. If you had like a school down the street and you could just go fly, like my flying fields are 10 minutes away. I know I'm lucky. And I'm talking about both of them. Like the school ones, the park, all of them are about 5 to 10 minutes away. And then the airfield, the giant scale airfield, which is an open 40-acre farm, right? Like it's
ridiculous.
It's awesome. And I feel so incredibly lucky. It's right around the corner from my house. So I know I'm lucky. And I know not everybody has that luxury. So going to the flying field is quite an adventure. Like I got to go. I'm going to be there a while. I'm going to take the things and I'm not leaving until it's exhausted because I won't get a chance to do this for a while.
But in my case, that just reiterates the importance of spending time in a simulator.
Yeah, a little bit here and there.
Now, before you go further with that, I want to put out there, depending on what transmitter you get, and if you're connecting to PC, we have run into in the past, and I know I ran into it at one point, where the Windows drivers don't grab correctly. Right. Windows had done some sort of driver update in the past that assigned the wrong version of a driver or wrong type of driver. We do know of that issue. And so if you run into that, you're like, my transmitter doesn't work. It's not doing the things. It's not recognized right. Reach out to us. I'll have to do a little bit. Yeah. Reach out to me. I'll have to do a little digging again, but I have encountered that. I have corrected it. I've helped a couple people. So if your transmitter isn't working right, so long as Windows is recognizing that something's connected, we can probably get it working.
We'll get you set up. Yeah. And I've had to go through that trouble. And it's like every time I go and sim, it seems like a new adventure in connecting the controller. But once it's connected, it's all good. And then you just go and have a good time. So let's actually talk about our top 3 picks for simulators. It's actually a couple more. But I'm going to say top three because those are the three I've actually used and had a little bit of time with. Joe and I have both used Phoenix 6. I think to this date, it is still free to download. It is basically an old simulator that was, again, leading edge. It still is on par with the leading flight simulators that are out there that I know of. It's free to download. There's a website you can go to. You think you start with like an older version and upgrade it, and they have almost all the other models. There's a couple things I don't maybe like how they crash or how some of the flight characteristics work, but it is absolutely critical tool to help you getting proficient with flight without having to do like Joe does, which is the it's reversed. It's reversed. It's coming at me. It's reversed. It's coming, and just always having to remind yourself at a certain point, your brain just gets it and you stop needing to do that. And there was a point that it happened and I didn't even realize it happened. I just stopped needing to tell myself. And, every once in a while you kind of panic and your brain goes, wait, which way is it going? Is it to or from? Oh God, left, right. And then you kind of move the sticks around and go, oh, right. Yeah. And your brain goes, I knew that. And then it flips back into knowing it all of a sudden again. It's pretty crazy. So, this is the greatest way, the cheapest way to get in. So Phoenix is free, but you'll need your own transmitter. So there is a cost for buying a transmitter. Now, you can use a transmitter that you use at the field for your planes. So you can take the one, it does dual duty. So you can actually, that one cost for your transmitter will go a long way. So don't worry too much about it if you are saying, oh no, I have to spend, $50 or $100 or $200 on a transmitter, because Real Flight 9.5 is a $100 program, and it's on par, I would say, with Phoenix 6. The flight characteristics, I think, in some ways are a little bit better on some planes. And then for another $100, it comes with a transmitter. I think it's a Spectrum DX5 or DX6. It's an actual transmitter, if I recall right. And you can use that to fly airplanes in the field too. So that $100 isn't completely lost money. And we'll talk about transmitters later. We're not looking to start a war with it, but it is an option and it is available. There is another one called Wings RC Flight Simulator, and I know Flight Test kind of backed it. I played a little bit of it. They have really good racing courses to do, like spec wing racing kind of stuff. So there's a couple of things in there that you can do that aren't supported terribly well in Real Flight and Phoenix. So that's one that's pretty neat, and it's $36. It's a lot cheaper. And
I've not ever played with that one, but I have been told it's really good for FPV.
Yeah, a lot of people really enjoy that. So there's another one called Aerofly RC10. I've never tried it. It's $80. Based on some of the features I looked at how things were moving in it, it seemed to be on par with Real Flight and Phoenix 6, as far as I could tell.
Newer, better graphics, maybe?
I don't even know. They looked about on par. Honestly, they looked about the same. One of the things about Real Flight is it is sponsored by Horizon Hobby or purchased by them or whatever. So all of the Horizon models that you can buy from a hobby store are in that simulator, and they fly exactly like you would get from the store. So if you are looking to buy a ready-to-fly model from the hobby store, if you get Real Flight 9.5, you will be able to take that and practice on that exact model. And when you go out to the field, it will feel no different. Well, it'll feel a little different, but not by much. You will already have a lot of the skills you need by the time you get to fly the real thing outside. Unless you start there. But I don't advise that. Anyway, so.
Speaking of ready to flies.
Okay. Yeah, we can.
Or do you want to? Yeah,
no, just real quick. Another thing about simulators, we don't talk about drones a whole lot, but drones also they're kind of expensive too. They start at about $150 to $200. I know that there's going to be people shouting, I can get it for less, and it's true, you can. And you can also get them for a heck of a lot more, like any of these. But flying those and trying to learn how to fly them like a race drone, right? So you can download a DRL, Drone Racing League. There's a simulator that simulates drone racing, and Liftoff is another one that also is a really good drone simulator. Both Phoenix and Real Flight have quadcopters in there, but they don't specialize in it. And I don't feel like they work terribly well for if you wanted to start doing drone racing. DRL and Liftoff are probably the two premier drone simulators, and they're excellent. I think Liftoff was like $20 to $30, and DRL I think might be free. I don't even know. I didn't look up the pricing, but just know that they're inexpensive. And they really do a good job of representing drones you can purchase off the shelf and fly around. And it's a lot of fun. If nothing else, just flying through the gates and trying your luck at it, because it is not easy. It is a very difficult skill to learn. But it is a lot of fun and pretty rewarding. It's like, again, you're racing through a forest like you're, on one of those land speeders in Star Wars or something like that. That's what it looks like. It's fantastic. So, good stuff. And
now
when you crash it, it doesn't cost you anything. It's just a space bar press away to restart. Yeah. So without further ado, though, ready to fly. So our next way to get into the RC flying world is with ready to fly models that have stabilization. So these are models that have all the things you need to get started. They have a transmitter, they have battery, they have a transmitter, they have the aircraft with all the parts and pieces in there. So the motor, the battery, the controller, the prop. They probably even have extra props, and they have I don't even know if they may or may not have a way to charge it. The battery,
probably,
or they may not include the battery, so you may have to buy a battery and a charger separate. But basically, they're pretty much ready to go. And almost all of those and those kind of kits, especially with the starter, if they're from E-Flight or something like that have Spectrum stuff, they have a 3-axis stabilization, and they have like a series of trainer modes that limit how much you can control the aircraft. So
yeah, sort of safe, isn't it?
Yep, safe. And what it does, and a lot of people, experienced pilots, will gripe about how it teaches you maybe the wrong things, but what it doesn't let you do is flip over your airplane immediately and crash it into the ground. So it gives you a fighting chance.
Which is a huge confidence boost in the beginning.
Yeah, in a big way. And it really gives you a fighting chance at success on the first couple times out. If you're on your own, you don't have anybody to fly with, there's no field in the area, you don't know anybody who's doing the thing, but you really want to try it. We're going to give you a small list of selections to be our top 5 kind of go-getters. This isn't this isn't our like endorsed list or anything. This is just, we've had experience with these things and we think they're good solutions. Really great. No, well, I suppose. But it's a great way to get in. If you do buy it from a hobby store, don't be shy and ask them to help you set it up. If it costs you a little bit of money, it's probably worthwhile. If you're buying a pre-made kit, it's worth the extra $20 or $30 to make sure it's set right. Those guys know what they're doing. They want you to have success. Let them help you. That goes with if you go to a flying field and they say, hey, do you want me to help you get this in the air? The answer is yes. Don't be proud. Have them help you. You'll be grateful. All right. So,
I mean, real quick, just so you don't feel at any point if you're out in the field that there's an inconvenience or that, other people don't need help or this. There was a guy, older fella, I could tell he was at the field often, at least semi-often, because the other guys knew him and, were ribbing him out the gate immediately. But he had his EDF foam jet or something out there, and they were over there helping him set it up and get the channels all set up properly and landing gear working, and this is the guy that had flown before. So if you have a field nearby, people will be happy to help you. Zach, the first time I took that edge out, now granted I built that, but first time I took it out, I said, hey, maiden flight, you want it? And
hey,
he was more than happy to do it.
Make sure these are set up, all the surfaces are set up with the right kind of deflections and trims, and could you help me get that set? Because I've never flown this type of plane before. And he was like, oh, yeah. And of course, like you saw him like the week before or earlier that day take a very large version of something like that gas
Oh, yeah,
powered,
literally like
and
10 minutes previous.
he literally like he put it in front of his hand, rolled the motor up and just let it hang there in front of him about 6 feet out, and just start to a gentle twist. It's like, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
that guy.
And they want to see you have success. So
yeah,
get it, take it out to the field, ask for help.
Yeah. And if you're thinking, no, they don't, think about it this way. Think of something you love. Don't you want other people to join you doing that thing you love, or are you trying to get them away from you? Right? No.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the time it's you want more people to join you.
Although
Cool.
I think we're hitting real heavy on our next one, but go ahead.
That's okay. No, we're good. Okay, so let me give you a series of things that I think are great selections for first pick. If you're doing a ready to fly, it basically has almost everything you need to get started. These are great starts. If they're a little bit more expensive, generally speaking, they're worth it. And we'll talk about that. Okay. So first is the E-flite Aero Scout. Like I said, these are not by any means like a definitive list, but I think I have had nothing but good success with the Aero Scout in a lot of different arenas. I've watched tons of other people have great success, even when I didn't set up some of the modes correctly, because there's a if you're not using Spectrum stuff and you're using like what we use, which is kind of a third-party deal, you have to do a little workaround. But even with that, like the plane flies great. Amy's flown the Aero Scout without even having to worry about it. She's new. Joe, I know you've had it a couple times and you're like, are you sure? And I'm like, dude, you can't mess this up too bad. Like if you're halfway paying attention and not trying to crash it, you'll be okay. Like I've seen it crash. Yeah, I've seen it crash because it will slowly come down to the ground, or it'll allow you to drift and kind of turn a bit, but it won't do it fast, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's a really good plane. Again, for the money, and I think I put $230, and I think that's the one that comes with everything. It's well worth the money. It comes with stabilizer, comes with all the things you need. The motors are really powerful. It actually has a really neat feature that I didn't expect, is when the battery goes low, it will pulse the motor to make a burp, 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 burp sound in the air. So you can hear it when the battery goes low.
That's good.
Yeah, so it's like that beeper that we always forget to put in our planes.
What?
I know. That's right. I called myself out too. Another one is one of those micro starter planes. Like I think Amy has I bought her an F-22. The FT Freighter. There's the FT Pterosaur, which is like a glider version of that, and it's got like two little brushed motors. Mm-hmm. And it's the differential throttle. All it has is throttle and has ailerons, and it's stabilized so the wind doesn't throw it all around.
Does it have ailerons?
Mm-hmm. It is really. Okay. It doesn't have a control surface, but the differential speeds of the motor create a rolling action.
Okay, so differential thrust.
It's sort of, but it also creates a rolling action, a coupled rolling action.
Yeah.
So it's not exactly, I mean, it is, but it's not. So most traditional planes, the differential thrust is almost purely for yaw. And these actually, it ends up creating a coupled roll. So they're really great. There's a couple other micros. You can buy them whatever plane suits your fancy. I've seen them in trainer, seen them in jets, seen them as, I'm trying to think, even B-22s. Like I said, the one that FT chose to kind of make big was the first one I had success with in those arenas, and it was like a C-130. So it's a freighter, is I think what they end up calling it. Flight test.
I remember you bringing that down.
It's a lot of fun to fly. It flies for like 20 minutes on like a nothing battery. And so it gives you a C-17. Thank you. Yeah, that's what it was.
Thank you, Ryan.
Thank you very much. So what it does though, is it gives you stick time. And all you have to worry about is only 2 channels. You only have to worry about throttle. It teaches you higher throttle equals, that's your elevation control, which is the proper way to learn how to fly a plane, because that's how you increase your height, is increase your throttle. It creates more lift, therefore you go up, right? Higher speed creates more lift. We went through that in the last episode or 2 episodes ago. Anyway, and the differential throttle, all you got to worry about is left and right. And it creates like a kind of gentle turn, and it's awesome. And it's stabilized, so you can't lose it, and it's lightweight, so it's really hard to break. And they're usually made out of EPP foam, which is double hard to break. So that foam isn't a brittle one, it's a rubberized foam, so it actually can take a number of impacts before you really have to start gluing things back together. It's a great plane. It's a perfect starter plane if it weren't so light. The only downside on that is that it's very light, and so you can only fly it on pretty calm days.
Mm-hmm.
And I suggested that flight test, the flight test Pterosaur and the flight test Freighter, specifically because I'm the flight test controllers have a longer range, and they have better control modes.
Okay.
And that's the only reason why I specifically suggested the FT Pterosaur or the FT Freighter, is because the controllers that they have with those models are upgraded from what you would get from all the other ones you could possibly get everywhere. Yeah, they're and even then they'll still go out really far before you lose control. I promise you. It's incredible how far they go out before they go. With the flight test controller ones, they don't. I mean, you will lose sight of it before you lose control. So, and they're like $50, so they're cheap. And it includes everything.
Nice.
Flight test kits. You and I kind of sharpened our teeth on that. And that's basically saying you buy all the parts and pieces, and we'll talk about some of that in a little bit.
Yeah, this isn't really ready to fly.
It's not ready to fly, but it teaches you how to build planes. It teaches you how to go through the thing. If you use the flight test as a build videos, and they have detailed instructions on how to do it. Their models are relatively cheap. When you crush, especially if you build one on your own, like you use the plans for free and you cut them out on your own, you're basically, each airframe is worth $5. If you crash it, you'll have to replace a propeller, which is $1, $2, maybe $3, and the foam you use to make the plane, and you can just, because you made it yourself, you can build it again.
Mm-hmm.
And so what ends up happening is once you buy the core pieces, like the power setup and the transmitter with the receiver, usually come as a pair, as you learn, you will crash that plane, and you will, I'm sorry, you'll crash the plane, and you might have to replace a couple, maybe a prop or maybe an ESC, maybe not, but probably not. You will have all that expensive stuff while you learn and rebuild just the cheap stuff. So It is a very inexpensive way to get and stay into the hobby. You'll have all the things you need to go forward. It's a little bit to get started, but once you have it, the sky's the limit on what you want to build. Like, you can build any plane you dream up, and I'm living proof. I've built some ridiculous things, and it's all out of foam board. Really, it's pretty interesting. At that point, your sky's the limit. So if you are a builder and a dreamer, this might be the way you go. Look up a couple flight test build videos. They're kind of mesmerizing to watch. See if that looks like it might be fun to do, and go jump in. And we'll list a number of things that we think you'll need in a couple segments from now.
Yeah, back to the ready to fly stuff.
Back to the ready to fly. Get a glider like a Radian, and you can get the Spectrum. A number of those transmitters have stabilizers in them. So whatever transmitter you have, if you get the one with stabilizer in it, you can plug it in your glider. And what I like about like a glider like the Radian, it flies for a long time. You can shut off the motor, so you have one less thing to worry about as a new person, and all you're worrying about is elevator and aileron, right? You don't have to worry about, and then you just using one stick and you're worried about that. And then when it gets low, you turn on the throttle and you zoom back up into the sky. And if you're smart, you hook up with a buddy box and have somebody to save you when it gets a little squirrely, right? You're like, oh, I don't know where I'm going. But
if you're smart and you have a field nearby, or somebody to fly with.
Yep. Heck, even, yeah. And if not, a glider it gives you more time. It's slower. It's more relaxing. So if you're new and you're learning, you have more time to figure it out before you are in true crisis. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, a glider is a great way to get started. Again, that's a lot of people like, oh, I got a Radian and a buddy box. Don't worry about it. I'm like, are you sure? I don't want to ruin your plane. They're like, dude, I'm going to put you up there. You're going to have to literally turn it straight to the ground for this bird to actually have a chance at getting in trouble.
Near enough.
Not to say it doesn't happen, but at the same point, yeah, it's not so bad. And then I put this other one on the list. It's again an E-flite. It has a stabilizer in it, has a safe, has a three axis stabilization, called the Habu. It's an EDF jet, and because everybody who's new, they go, I want to fly the jet. They're like, do you know how to fly any airplanes? No, but I want to fly that jet. That's the jet. And the hobby store will probably say, don't. Let's get you in a trainer. And you'll be like, I don't care. I know what I want. I've got money. Give me something. So if you're insistent that you want to fly the jet, there's jets out there you can fly. If you're new, get the Habu with the stabilizer and the safe and all that stuff, and have somebody help you. That's what we saw this weekend. Guy had a new version of that. And
is that what that was?
Yeah, that's what it was.
Oh.
And everybody loves it. Everybody who has one of those or ever flown one of those is like, oh my God, that's great. What it does is it gives you the whoosh sound. It gives you the feel of the jet. It gives you, it's fast. So it is not the smartest starter plane. But if you're going to start and you insist on doing it with a jet, get something like that. Go get one of those. That's why I put it there. There's other planes, right? There's other planes. But also, if you're getting one of those FT kits, I recommend, and Joe and I think you and I all kind of agree, the Mustang, the Spitfire, the Warhawk, P-40 Warhawk, and like the FT Explorer. If you build, and I've heard other people have mixed reviews on if they build the Fogey successfully. You and I love the old Fogey. It's a slow, gentle trainer. You can do touch and goes, and you can have a great time with it. It's never going to go fast. We just urge, don't send it up in a windstorm. You probably won't get it back. But like all of those,
not easily. Yeah.
No, it's a big wind sail, so it doesn't really come back. It's lightly powered, right?
But again,
all of those planes,
those aren't RTF.
No, those are those $5 per build to build the plane. Yeah, it's simple.
Brian does say, don't forget about the E-flite Apprentice.
Oh yeah, right. Yep.
Apparently,
E-flite, that's a trainer.
Uses them for training.
Good. E-flite Apprentice, and that's the other thing. I've even seen you go out to a club, and that's step way number 3 to get in. Go to a club, sign up, and say, I want to join your training program. I want to learn how to fly. I want to get into this hobby. Help me. And they say, okay, you come out. We're going to pair you with this local expert. And you guys work out times to come out, and we have a trainer plane, and we'll teach you how to fly. And we'll get you in this hobby so that you are confident to be able to buy your own stuff and that you'll have success so that I want you to come back. It usually will cost you maybe the membership fee, but the training, I don't know if they even make you do, they have the buddy box stuff. So all you're really doing is buying membership for the club. They're going to train you. They want to see you fly. I should have done it. I didn't.
Wish I had it.
Yep. You wish you had it. And that's the other thing is like, one of these days we're going to talk about how to start a club when you decide it's time to start a club.
And that actually ties into your next one.
I guess it does. Yeah. Wait, which is that?
Number 3.
Well, yeah, that's 5. What I was just talking about. Yeah. Going in the membership costs.
Yeah.
That's all you're going to
Brian's saying he doesn't even think most charge the membership fee for training.
Yeah, maybe not.
I don't know.
They may want it just to make sure if it does crash the plane, they can replace it probably. But again, talk to your local field.
Find out.
They'll let you know what they need. And again, they're going to err on the caution of trying to get you to have fun in the hobby. Again, they're on your side, I promise. So that's one. I don't know. Maybe that should be number 1. One of the best ways to get flying and being successful.
If you have a field in your area.
If you do. If you're like Joe, use one of these other methods. We talked about flight test, grabbing some of those kits, the ready to fly, because there are ways to get receivers. If you don't have the receivers that stabilize, right, that you can put in a flight test kit, just build a kit. They're cheap. You'll break it. You'll repair it. Yeah, I mean, again, once the main parts are purchased, re rebuying the parts that broke are cheap.
Hmm.
Literally, I mean, you will get it back in the air in $10. I'm pretty certain, unless you
Yeah.
really, I don't know, did a couple different things. So, all right,
So this is your fourth point, the flight test stuff.
yep.
Um,
I urge larger, even though that seems contradictory. Get something that's like a 10-inch prop, a C-type pack with flight test. And again, the ones we recommended before are great birds to start with.
they
Easy to
are.
build, easy to
Uh,
build, and they fly better.
you've recommended the FT Explorer, and you flown it. I have not.
Hmm.
The old fogey, I will never have any qualms suggesting that to somebody. The Mustang, the Spitfire, those I would say are better for second or third planes. I won't even say builds because I crashed my old fogey a few times getting
Hmm.
started.
Yep.
But those can be good second or third planes. I would not suggest those for out the gate. Getting into the hobby, get an old fogey. Some say the simple Cub. I didn't have the greatest success with it, but that is another one. Just their trainer series. And the reason that something like the P-51 Mustang or the Spitfire can be a good second or third is they the way they are designed, the way they're built, the planes they were based on, they had characteristics that made them good for not having a ton of experience. I think the Mustang and the Spitfire both had it. Based on what I've seen on yours, they've got the dihedral wings, which is your lifted wings, so the wings are angled up a bit, which helps with self stabilization. But what's also important is they have what's called undercambered wingtips,
Hmm.
which create a lot of lift, a lot of drag, but prevent what's called tip stalling,
Right.
which is when a wing loses lift out at the wing tip and that wing falls. The undercambered nature of those wings keeps them from stalling at the tips of the wing first, and also allows them to have a slower flight envelope. They can fly
Yep.
slower.
Yeah, they have a
Um,
lot. They have a lot more drag at the wingtips there, so that
mhm.
helps slow them down a bit too. It helps on landings a lot, right?
Yes.
Where you're likely to lose lift is when everything starts to get slow, the angle starts to get a little high. That's usually on approach of either takeoff or landing, and that makes sure that you're not going to have one wingtip. If it loses lift right as you're about to land, that's it for the aircraft. You're going to have to rebuild it probably, or you're
Mm.
going to watch a cartwheel across the field. Oh, look at that! Um,
So
and I've seen it.
you can buy those kits if you sign up for the FTCA, which is Flight Test Community Association. There's a level at which you can get free plans, or you
You,
can, which I think some of those like the old
you can
fogies might still have
all
the
all
free
the
plans.
all the ones I've listed in the resources on the
Okay.
forums, they are available still. All the ones that are originally free are still free.
Okay.
Yep.
And
Um.
then actually a shout out for a couple years ago, the Vulture from the Hangar RC.
Mhm.
You can actually still get those plans,
Yep.
and
Yeah, and
that
that's the
was
quintessential old timey trainer.
yeah, you call it a Buzzy Bomber or something.
Yep, that's what it was
Yeah,
originally.
that was pretty good
Hmm.
starter plane.
Yep. Uh. Yep. I would say, yeah, definitely. So again, and the thing with the flight test is you're going to need to buy all the components, but as you're doing the build and as you're buying the components, especially if you get them bundled through flight test, they have really easy ways to get what you need, right? Um, they're all set up so that they'll work together without risking like burning something up. Because if you're sizing your own stuff, if you size it wrong, you might overheat parts, right? Like the electronics might be putting in too much effort, and then
Hmm.
they let out the magic smoke. So that's one of the reasons why I suggest that, because it's a great way to get started. They had their whole culture, and that's part of, I guess, what we'll talk about in a little bit is, the culture behind, get involved with community. That's really important. Have people who are there to support what you're doing, and to kind of encourage you and to help you along, right? FT forums and the FT, the flight test community, is a great supporter of new hobbyists. You got us, right? You're listening to this podcast. That's a great way to get started. Listen to podcasts, old or new. If they're doing this kind of stuff, just listening to what they're doing will encourage you to keep at it. If you're having a kind of a low moment, because they happen, you crash and you go, man, there goes my budget. Oh no, that was so much fun, and now I feel so awful that I broke it all. It's like, well, you may not have broke as much as you thought. It's okay. We all do it. And it kind of gives you a different way to see the hobby. Instead of being, I need to be successful, it helps you define what success is. You made progress. You got better. Even though you didn't get it in the air and flying around. And you'll hear in those communities, you'll hear of people failing. And when it happens, it's okay. You laugh a bit. Just enjoy how ridiculous it was. Pick up the pieces and rebuild, or start over in a different way. It's okay. Almost all those planes that we built are backed by very solid companies, and they all have replacement parts and pieces. So if you do crash it, it's okay. You can just replace a fuselage. They'll send you a new one, and you can rebuild it from there. That kind of thing. Okay. And then last but not least, if you're looking to get on the hobby, this is, Joe, more or less how you did it. I found you a really good deal for somebody who's getting out of the hobby. They had a bunch of stuff. They didn't need it anymore. And they said, here's a kit to get started. It's like half price or less. And it had everything you needed.
It did. I think what you're aiming at there is getting a plane used. Maybe,
but all of it.
But also,
all of it. If you need to get all the parts and pieces, you're likely to find some. Look for a plane. If you go to a swap meet, even more so. You'll be like, I just got into this hobby. I don't even know what I want. People will be like, here, take this plane. This was a great trainer. I don't need trainers anymore. I've got 60 of them. I have more than I need. Take it. Here, give me $5. We'll call it a purchase. Get out of here. Get started. They want to see you start, right? Some of the guys are going to try to get your money, right? Some of them are going to, you got to watch out.
I need to find this $5 guy.
Right? No, me too. I haven't found him yet either. But I've every once in a while, you talk to Terry Dunn. He's got everybody trying to give him that $5 deal, it seems. Or you go in and you buy the one plane, and with it, the guy's like, well, how about $10 for these 6 over here too? Because I want to get rid of those too.
There you go.
He's just, I don't know, he always looks out that way, it seems. But no, just if you're going in the classified sections, you'll find fairly good deals. There are people who are upgrading their transmitters. Their transmitter they have is perfectly good. It might be a little older, but it like yours was, but it still works. The protocol is the same. It still functions, and it will control.
My transmitter worked great.
Yeah, it still does. It still does, and you already upgraded, right?
I've been having a little trouble with it lately, but that's unrelated.
Yeah, that probably had to be doing with an upgrade to the software or whatnot. But if you left it, it would have worked.
Sure.
Probably. I don't know. My point is,
if I didn't leave it in the roasting garage, it would probably. That might be the biggest part of it.
Okay, that might be it. Well, that's fair. So my point is, if you're looking to get in, you don't have to spend the full amount that most of these components, when sold used, still work just fine as if they were new. You do have to look out for it. Buyer beware. It is a used product, so take that for what it's worth. But you really can find some great deals and get in for very cheap. Again, if you're at the field, watch out. There's a lot of guys who are like, I have no room and I want to get this out of here. This thing you just saw me fly, I'll give it to you for $50. I want to see you fly this and I need it out of my house. Take it. I'm going to go buy another really big plane. Sometimes that happens. If you happen to, I bought 3 balsa kits for $20 because it's what I had in my pocket. I was like, oh, cool. Here, these guys retired. They have an entire garage filled with kits, and their loved one is like, we need to get rid of them now. And he's like, yeah, I guess so. And so he just wants it to go to a good home. You may luck out on that if you are part of these communities. So Don't expect that they'll all be like that, but if you're savvy and you're on the lookout, I think you'll find some pretty good used stuff. Swap meets. Look on the classified sections of like RC groups. Flight Test has some of that. Just keep an eye out. You might luck out. That's how I got Joe. Helped Joe get his first setup. It was more than half price, and all the components he got were top notch. So
yeah, it was good stuff.
So those are our top 5s. So let me go through it really quick. Start out with simulators. They're the cheapest way. They're the best way to get in and get skills, so that when you actually get out to the field with the plane, you don't just waste all your money into the ground. Number 2, get ready to fly models with stabilizers. There's a bunch of different levels, and the price limit goes up, but they're always there. Find a community, go to a local flying field, and ask about their training program if you have it. Flight Test. Go to a place that, again, they want to get you in cheap. They want to get you into the hobby. There hasn't been a better time to get in inexpensively into this hobby. It's pretty fantastic. And they have their whole focus was, how do we get people into this hobby? How do we break those, like, oh, it's too expensive? They found a really good way. It's how Joe and I got into the hobby. I don't think without what they did, I don't know that he and I would even be doing this at all. So, and we'd be looking at it going, man, I wish I could do that. And then last but not least, go get used stuff. It's okay. It's not all crud. Most of the used stuff is just somebody who doesn't need it anymore because they bought new. Because new stuff comes out frequently. Some of it's big upgrades, some of it's nothing, some of it's just it's new and shiny, depending on the person. Yeah. So if you're one who wants to get in like through Flight Test or buy used, and you want to know, like, do I have everything I need? Joe, do you want to start going down that list of making sure you have the minimum you need?
Yeah. So if you're going to be scratch building or even picking up a used thing, there are going to be a number of things that you need for repairing or just straight up building from scratch. And so we'll just kind of go through a list of, here's what you're going to need, regardless of how you're approaching it.
Yep.
A kit of some kind, whether you're doing a pre-purchase, like a laser cut kit, or if you're building from scratch, you need the plans. But what are you going to build? You need that. You're going to need your hot glue. And we'll say hot glue. You can do it with foam tack. Hot glue just makes it faster.
If you're doing balsa, it'll be wood glue or white glue or urethane glue or what is it? Cryoisosanger. Yeah, CA. Yep.
You want a hobby knife. I think most people use number 11.
Yep.
Or people call them X-Acto knives. Get you some replacement blades while you're at it.
By the hundreds.
Literally by hundreds. I bought a pack of 100. I'm still working on it, but you can get those off Amazon. And they're not terribly expensive for all those.
It's like $15 for this pack.
Yeah. Get yourself a cutting mat. You can get those from craft stores, or you can make yourself some sort of a cutting mat. I've heard of self-healing cutting mats. Don't know anything about those.
That's what I've got here. Those square ones that I have down on my surfaces. Those are the self-healing kind. Usually you can get them at, honestly, I would have to say Walmart tends to have the cheapest ones. They'll be about half the price of most hobby stores that I've gone to.
Okay.
And they come in pretty large sizes there. Because they're you'll be using the ones that are used for, they're oftentimes used for quilting or sewing.
Right. That's generally what I have. Mine just don't heal.
Okay. But they work. I mean, they don't fully heal. I mean, they're still, but they don't, they ooze back together. So that next time you cut, you're not just gouging a bigger hole until you get all the way through. I think that's what they mean by self-healing. Like you do more on the surface. But inside if you look, it's like kind of a sandwich of 3 layers. That middle layer is like a low viscosity, still fluid at room temperature. So it eventually, like it's It's mostly solid, but like it will come back together.
Okay.
Yeah.
Your build material in this case, we do foam board.
Yep,
So a lot of this is speaking from a foam board perspective. Packaging tape. Matthew really likes, and since I've been using it, I really like the fiber reinforced packaging tape, specifically for the motor pods. If you're doing a motor pod, but clear packaging tape is useful for all the building, reinforcing or taping two panels together to hold it until you can get it glued. I like to use tape on the leading edge of a wing when I roll it over, just because I roll them over tight, and if I've got a little bit of a nick in that paper, the front end of my wing's going to blow out.
Right. It's incredibly strong tensile strength. So if you have a thing where it's going to start pulling apart, if you reinforce it, if you put tape across the back of that, it will hold better. I put in pins and magnets, and that's mostly for balsa builders. It does a lot of the same kind of thing as most of the packing tape for the foam does. It kind of holds things in place until they set.
Well, magnets are also beneficial if you're doing a hatch kind of thing, even with foam board.
Yeah.
So the Foam Wonder spawns are put in where you put magnets to help hold the battery hatch cover in place.
Yep.
So they can be useful for a couple different things. Barbecue skewers, we tend to use the 1/8 inch. You can get those pack of 100 from Walmart for what, like $4 or something?
Yeah. Heck, you can get that from a grocery store too.
Yeah.
Yep.
I just, Walmart's my go-to grocery store. Sorry.
Oh no, that's fine.
It's right down the street.
Yeah. They've worked really hard at that. I said they worked really hard.
Call it the neighborhood marketplace.
Neighborhood marketplace. Right. And of course, so those are all kind of like your building materials. You don't have to have a cutting mat. You can actually just use a cardboard box, right? Cut out a square from a cardboard box and use that. Like as long as what you're trying to do is protect the surface that you're building on, right? That way you're not marring your table.
Don't go straight on the kitchen table.
Yeah, you'll either, if you're young and your mother will hate you and kick you out of the house, and no, she won't, but she'll be really disappointed.
She'll be very upset.
Yeah, very upset. Or your wife will kick you out of the house.
Husband.
Or husband will kick you out of the house if you're marring up their table, especially if it's supposed to be the nice one.
Yeah, well, I'm fortunate that if that were to happen, when we adopted our dog from my parents, we got a very nice dog house to go with it.
Oh, good.
Got a nice cushion to go in there, a little scenic front door flapper. So I suppose if something were to happen, I wouldn't be too bad off.
I was going to say, you seem to know that really well. I hope you haven't had
set
to
it
use
up for her.
Oh, okay. But like, I might need to push you over, ma'am.
Yeah,
Nice.
I'm kind of looking in there. How do I fit a 8-inch TV screen in here for when it inevitably happens?
Yeah. And then if you're picking up a park flyer, something like 40 to 55 or so inch wingspan, you're going to need a setup that's pretty typical. Flight Test CPAC, if you look at what they have there. Those are actually, most of them are kind of old drone motors because they are really efficient. That's kind of what they selected them for. But basically, you're going to need to get a whole power setup. That goes from the very front. It starts at the propeller. That connects to the motor. The motor is controlled by the speed controller or electronic speed controller, ESC.
The thumb bone's connected to the wrist bone.
Right. And then if the ESC has a battery eliminator circuit, it basically cuts the voltage down from whatever the battery sends to 5 volts. And it sends that and a control signal. And receives a control signal from your receiver. So it'll power your receiver and get the signal for the throttle and then control the motor that way. That then connects to the LiPo battery, and that LiPo battery just kind of straps in. Oftentimes you'll have there'll be 2 connectors. There's a big kind of chunky connector, and that's what connects and goes straight to the battery or straight to the motor. And then there's these balance leads, which basically allow the battery charger and the battery checker to detect what each packet in that battery, each cell, what the voltages are. It's important in LiPo batteries that they remain very similar.
Pretty close, yeah.
Yeah, they need to at least be pretty close. So they got to check them and make sure that they're remaining healthy and that they don't dip too low or too high. We'll talk about battery safety in a second. because it's important we cover it. If you're going to buy this and you don't know anything, this is new, just cover it. That way you're at least keeping pretty safe. You're going to need
to my phone charger, right?
No, it's unfortunately not like that. But so with the LiPo battery, you're going to need a battery charger for LiPo batteries. For the hobby, they have a number of different, ranging from $35 all the way to hundreds. But basically, you need something. You even have them; they go for less. I don't tend to recommend those. They don't charge very fast, and I don't think they do a very good job of keeping the cell voltage level. The $35 ones on up tend to do a lot better job. Anyway, so you're going to need one of those battery chargers. Keep in mind, if you want to charge it into your wall, you're going to have to make sure it's an AC voltage and it's set for your country's voltage. You're going to need a transmitter, and that comes with a receiver. The transmitter, you can go anywhere from a $50 transmitter, even as low as $35. Those tend to be missing helpful pieces. So usually $50 will get you what you need at the minimum. You want 6 channels. That'll allow you to grow in the hobby until you need to outgrow it. At that point, you'll know what you need. But to get started, 4 to 6 cells or 4 to 6 channels. 6 is pretty much the standard minimum. And you'll need 6 servos, 2 to 6 servos. That will control all the different surfaces. If you're new to flying entirely, you probably looked at a plane. You got ailerons, which cause the roll; those go out on the wings. You've got rudders are in the tail and the back, and they create a looking left, looking right action called yaw. And then the elevator, which moves the pitch, so it turns the nose up or turns the nose down. That's a pitching action. That's controlled by the elevator. So each one of those surfaces, the 2 on the wings, the 1 on the rudder, the 1 on the elevator, each one of them needs a servo. And then if you want to do fancier stuff like have flaps or landing gear stuff, you might need a couple extra. So you'll need, depending on the plane, you'll need 2 to 6 servos. At the size that you're probably going to fly when you start, they're really cheap. Blue Tower Pros are plenty. They will do you good. They're inexpensive, and if they break, it's okay. If you crash them and they break, they're easy to replace. They're cheap. I use colored packing tape to give color to my planes to make it mine. That's really helpful in telling which way your plane's going. If you're doing balsa, you're going to need like tissue or covering paper, balsa wood, that kind of stuff. Let's see. I think last but not least, right? You're going to need your
airplane model.
Yeah, you're going to need your airplane model. So we recommend, almost everybody I've ever heard of recommends, get a trainer. It's a high wing. It looks like a Cessna, right? It looks like those little Cessna trainer planes, the little wings sitting on top.
And there's a reason that they're like that.
And there's a reason.
That they're popular as trainers.
Their natural tendency is to fly level. Like it will return to even with the horizon flight, given all things being equal, right?
Yep. Couple things going into that is the center of mass of the plane is under the wing,
so it's which not trying to helps, flip over the plane,
which is helping with that. And the trainers will typically have dihedral, which, as mentioned before, was the elevation of the wings to help automatically roll you back level.
Yep. Gliders tend to have, we'll call it more exaggerated versions than that, because they don't, if you deflect, you actually are slowing the plane down and causing it to fly for less. So they want that to happen naturally. So they try to do that a little bit more efficiently. That's one of the reasons why the glider's on the list.
And one more thing that can be added to this list from a getting into it, getting started, having success, and even those who have experience flying. I didn't have one for the longest time, and I've only used it on one plane so far. It's not necessary, but if you're looking for building from scratch or a kit and you don't have any kind of flight stabilization, there are flight stabilizer boards out there. The ones that I've used, or the one that I used, was the FT Aura board. It does a pretty good job. You got to look into how to orient it. There's a video on how to set it up and get it working. And then it's worth knowing how to flip through the different modes and what the different modes do because there's essentially low rate, high rate, and takeoff assist, and then it's not doing anything for you.
If that's what you're doing. So whatever plane you buy, if it's got that stuff in it, follow the manual for initial setup, and it will help you get success.
Takeoff assist was nice.
Yeah. I'm not going to get, I won't even talk about how much that crutch felt so good.
How many planes did you just throw into the dirt?
Shush you. Shush. I got like 70 sitting right here that say none. I don't know what you're talking about. Like me. Also, make sure that the plane you buy is simple to put together. It's your first one, right? If you're new, it's one of your first ones. You don't want something ridiculously as awesome as that great F-14 Tomcat with all the missiles and the wings that sweep out and all the the flaps and the spoilers and the nose thing that comes and all the landing gear. Like no.
You'll get there.
You will. Aero Scout has a wing. You flip it you pull the two together, and you have 3 bolts that go down. And then you have landing gear that clips in, and now you're done. That is literally all you have to do to put it together. And they're all thumb screws. You don't even need a tool. You just put it on and you're done. The hatch is magnetically closed. It just clips in, basically. And it's simple. I mean, you really couldn't get simpler than that. They did such a great job. That's why it's first on the list. But most of these other planes have something very, very similar in its simplicity. Start simple. The less you have to think about when you start, the better off you are going to be able to grow.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But speaking of starting out and things you have to consider and things you have to be aware of, there are regulations that are coming into play around this hobby. Unfortunate as they are, they serve a place or they serve a purpose. Mixed feelings about them. But coming up soon.
We have many past episodes on the evolution of them and our opinions of it. Ultimately, as you start in, you just need to know this. Right?
Go ahead.
Today, unless you're flying at an AMA field that has been FRIA approved, it is a federally recognized independent area or something like that. What is that called? But basically, it does not need an ID and a separate ID or a remote ID.
A remote ID.
Right. So it is an identified area already. So if you're flying at a club that has that, you don't have to worry about this needing to identify your airplane separately. But the FAA requires that every plane, if it is not in a FRIA, it needs to be flying under a community-based organization rules. And it needs to have remote ID. And we're not going to get into it. Just know that that's something you need to have. Flight Test has a great unit. It's one among the cheaper. Spectrum has a couple receivers with that stuff built in. So look around. They're about $100, which is disappointing, but you're going to need one, and you can move it from plane to plane, as I understand it, at this point. The flying guidelines are from the Air Modelers. Oh, shoot. What does AMA stand for again?
Air Modelers of America, I think.
Oh, I don't think so. The magazine.
Academy of Model Aviation.
Yeah, that's it. Academy of Model Aeronautics, I think.
There it is.
And the FTCA is Flight Testing Community Association, and FPV Freedom Coalition. Those are all federally recognized community-based organizations. They each have a rule set that you need to fly under when you're doing your flying. You have to have remote ID, and you have to be flying under one of those rules. And most importantly, don't fly over people or buildings. Just don't do it. I mean, I think there's technically ways you can sort of do it, but don't. Just don't, and you'll be safe.
Academy of Model Aeronautics.
Academy of Model Aeronautics. Perfect. I can't speak it, but now you got it. Anyway, so I'm a member of the AMA. I'm also the member of the FTCA. I don't think I've joined the FPV Freedom Coalition. That's First Person View Freedom Coalition. So it's more for, it's an organization kind of started up by drone pilots, because their needs are very different than traditional airplane aviation, that kind of stuff, model aeronautics, right? Anyway, so those are the basics. You need to know that they're there. You need to know that you need a remote ID unit or to join a club and fly at that FRIA that they've got established with the government. You need to fly by those rules. Look them up, educate yourself. It's a way for you to get started. We'll give you a couple links down below to find those rules. And I'm trying to think, well, we should be able to link you to Part 103. I feel like that's not going to help you. It's a federal rule set. It's an awful bear to read. So we'll probably link you to FPV Freedom Coalition's summary of what the needs are. So that's good. And then as we talked about safety, your plane that you're going to fly is likely going to be powered by a lithium polymer battery or LiPo. Lithium polymer batteries are generally very safe, but if they are charged above or beyond limits, they create a runaway heat situation, which causes the battery to, have a runaway discharge. And what that means is it basically heats up and catches fire. And it's a chemical fire. So it's not like it's put out by water or anything like that. It is chemical reactions that are happening out of control, and they will not be stopped and they kind of more or less have to run themselves out and have stuff to smother it while it's happening, so it doesn't catch other things on fire. So again, really rare. As long as you're treating your batteries well, you're keeping them. So be sure that you keep your LiPos when they're not in a plane and being used that day. They need to be stored. Each cell should be reading 3.7 or 3.8 volts per cell. That's the storage charge. Once they're there, they're safe to do all the things. Make sure that they don't get punctured, they don't get dropped in water and that kind of stuff. Charge them to no more than 4.2 volts. There's high voltage cells that allow you to put a little bit more volts in there. 4.35 volts, I think, per cell. But mostly just don't put them past 4.2 volts. And your battery chargers already know this. So when you set them up, they will stop charging at that point. That's part of what's great about the battery chargers. Discharge them to no less than 3.3 volts. That's why those little battery checkers you can get for almost nothing, they are your friend. You attach them to the balance lead to your battery, and they will basically constantly read out what the cells have. And when it gets below a threshold, you can set what it is. It will start to beep, and it's loud. And the whole point of that is if it's in your plane and it's 300 feet out or 1,000 feet out, like you'll hear the beeping, so you'll know, one of my cells is below the threshold or closing in on the threshold, which means you're draining it, and it's time to bring it in. So that way you don't go too far low. Now, there's a thing that your cells will be pulled down below 3.3. And then after you stop, they'll probably restore some of those volts. So some of that charge
voltage drop.
Yeah, it's a local drop that basically, it's almost like when you pull water from a well, it locally pulls down, but then it kind of comes back up and settles. It's kind of what's happening in the battery, I think. We'll get into that more as we try to get an expert on board to tell us what really is happening all in there. And more importantly, when you're charging, always charge it with the battery stored in a fire-resistant safe. So it's either some sort of ammo box with like a little cord coming out that you can charge with, or they make these fiberglass pouches that are fire-resistant. They have like Velcro on the top.
Thank you for mine, by the way.
Yep, you're welcome. I want to make sure you're safe before anything else. The LiPo bags, you want to do it during the charge and discharge cycles, definitely. I always store mine in them. The problem is I always store too many in there. You should really only have, like they make these little kind of fiberglass pouches or little boxes, and then they have like divider walls that you can kind of Velcro in place. And those divider walls make sure that the fire does not set the next battery on fire too.
Oh, that would be smart.
Yeah, it would be really smart. I wish I was smart enough to use them on a regular. Anyway, we won't talk about what my battery setup should be, or let's not talk about what it is, but let's talk about what it should be.
Do as I say, not as I do.
Definitely right now. Yes. So the whole point is if it does happen where they get in a runaway situation, you won't be able to just put it out. Like you won't. You can put it in water and it will still go. boiling the water basically from under. A lot of people will basically just extinguish it with sand. Tends to be one of the best methods, and I think there's one of the fire extinguishers can do chemical fires. I can't remember what type that is. I didn't look it up before here, but if you do have a battery charging setup, make sure you have one of the methods I saw, which was great. They basically filled up a bag of play sand or had that over top. If there was a fire in the battery cell, it would heat the plastic container for the sand, and it would melt that plastic, and then the sand in the bag would release onto the battery. And it doesn't extinguish it, but it extinguishes it. It basically creates a heat sink as well as it's effectively a fire snuffer. It does very good. I mean, it'll be a smoky mess, and it'll still be awful, but it won't have caught your whole house on fire. So that's a plus.
Which is the important part.
That really is.
More importantly, it didn't catch your house on fire while you were asleep in it.
Exactly. Right. Exactly. So when you're done charging or discharging, put them back in the battery safes. Put them back in your storage containers. Ammo boxes are great. Make sure you have a couple vent holes, because if it does set fire, it will heat up, and that smoke has to go somewhere, or it will blow the lid off of the pressure will blow the lid off your ammo box. That's part of why ammo boxes are designed the way they are. But in this case, you do actually want a little vent hole, enough for some of that to escape, so it doesn't turn into basically a small grenade.
If you want to learn more about LiPo batteries and their safety, we did an episode way back. Go look for episode 7. There's a whole episode on batteries.
We've got a link to that from our website, so you can listen to it directly on our website if you'd like. You can go to your favorite podcast aggregator and go find our episode 7 and download it, and we talk about that
on their podcast aggregator. If they're,
it should be. It depends on where they're listening to it. If they're listening to it individually on Spotify, because they're like, oh my God, I love Spotify. These guys are honest. I love this new episode 90 from Aviation RcNoob podcast. I need to go back and listen to episode 7, and maybe they have to go find it, but it's there. Flight Test also has an article, and that's based on their experience. They had a LiPo fire in their facility, and they had to address it. Yep. So that kind of covers that. It's a little article they have on their website, just trying to help people keep safe. Because we'd love that. When you look at it, it's like it's one of the densest power sources you could have, and it really has changed the hobby dramatically, which is why it's used. It's really safe, but
until it's not.
Well, but there's chances, and there's small occasions where you think about it. You've got thousands of cycles between all the different batteries over a certain amount of time. If you don't care for them right, they are more likely to actually have a problem. So there's ways to safely discharge and get rid of them. So we're going to see, I found a LiPo safety council. So I'm reaching out to them and seeing what we can do about getting somebody like that on board to talk to us about battery safety from the official capacity, so that we don't have to just do our best. I want to make sure that we're doing the best, not our best. If you understand. Yeah. So with that, I hate to leave on the safety note, the oh no, but that's just to make sure that when you get into this hobby, you're aware of how to do it safely, so you can continue to do it with fun and safety for years and years and years. Because it's an amazing hobby. It's incredible. So if you've decided to take the plunge, I hope this helps you get started.
I hope so, because I would not have stayed with it, I don't think, if I didn't have you. And it's been, I think, a great friendship builder for us. So whether you're doing it by yourself, or if you got somebody that you're getting into the hobby with, which would be even better, it's just a good experience. Friendship building, community building, and just a good time. A hobby that you can do for years.
Yep. If you want to join a great community, you can join our Discord. We'll put a link in the doobly-doo. And you can join all the great people who live, eat, breathe, sleep, talk, build, crash, rebuild.
Yeah, you think we're nutty.
No, but it's a whole community of like-minded folks who really love this hobby and aviation, and they're just as eager as we are to see you get involved, find success, and keep in the hobby and spread the joy around. So, welcome. I hope you listen to this, and I hope this helps. Let us know in the comments or go into the Discord and let us know what you thought of the episode. We love to hear from you, and if you're interested in 6 months or so, tell us what you thought, what your experience was. I'd love to hear it.
Absolutely.
Joe, you want to take us out?
Yeah, let's do it. Well, guys, as always, we thank you for tuning in and listening. We hope you have enjoyed listening to this episode as much as Matthew and I have enjoyed sitting here for
1 hour and 50 minutes.
Something like that. Just enjoying each other's company and talking. We thank you guys for allowing us to do this, because we wouldn't do it without y'all. And it just, go ahead.
A big thanks to our patrons. If you've gotten this far and you found value in it and you want to support what we're doing here, we have a link to a patron site, which we ask for donations to help keep the doors open, help cover the cost of basically getting this out to everybody. If you found it useful, go over there. I know you mentioned what it was, right?
Not yet, but I will if you want me to.
Yeah, do it.
Okay. It's patreon.com/aviationrcnoob. You can reach out to us, aviationrcnoob@gmail.com, or you can reach out to Matthew at aviationrcnoob.com, or me, Joe, at aviationrcnoob.com. Feel free to reach out to us on our Facebook group. There is a page. Prefer you use the group. Join our Discord. The link will be down in the doobly-doo. Feel free to swing by the website. I know Matt's got big plans for that in the coming weeks and months. So looking forward to that. We have somebody consulting with us on it. Thank you, Amy, to help us get a lot of that straightened out and figured out. Look forward to some build nights. I'm going to get a simulator night put together soon. I'll announce that whenever I do get that figured out. But Matthew, if there's nothing else,
nope. Just join us at the build night. You get to see some of the big ideas we're working on for the upcoming flight festivals this year.
All right. Well, guys, we will see y'all next time.
Bye.
Bye.
Nice job, Joe.
That was all right. Now recording. Let's say hello, Matt.
Hello, Craig.
Very good. And we can get rid of him now.
Bye-bye, Craig.
Bye, Craig. Get out of here, Craig. Once I find the channel.
Now it's getting awkward.